We're live. Okay, welcome everyone to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, March 18th. I'm here today, Patty Clapper and Jeffrey Woodruff are here today. Our other colleagues, Francie and Greg, are taking some well-deserved vacation, and they are not here today. But they will catch up and look at video upon their return, I am told. So, thank you everyone. We will get started with our first item, which is a Lincoln Creek Work Group update and presentation on the Phase 2 scope of work. And I welcome Lisa Tasker from the Pickens County Healthy Rivers Program and Kurt Dahl with Public Health, Environmental Health. Welcome.
Thank you. I am just trying to pull up.
And we would also, while he's doing that, like to welcome Chip Fisher from LRE Water. He's also joining us.
Hi, Chip.
Hello.
Engineer with LRE Water.
All right, so thank you. So Lisa and I are here today along with Chip just to give you a quick update on the happenings with the Lincoln Creek work group that we formed. Just wanted to go through really quick as a reminder on the work group itself and Lincoln Creek. So first I have a map here showing Pickens County, and I was going to zoom into the Lincoln Creek area down here by Independence Pass so that you could, just as a refresher on where that is. And then Grizzly Reservoir. So Lincoln Creek is flowing, this is the headwaters here where my pointer is, down through
The north.
and then down into the Roaring, joins up with the Roaring Fork. And then Grizzly Reservoir is here. This is a water collection system for Front Range, City of Colorado Springs, and I think Pueblo both have rights to it. And it collects water both from Lincoln Creek as well as these three drainages here, which are, we call them the New York drainages, New York Creek, Tabor Creek, Brooklyn Creek. So that was just the basics for Lincoln Creek. And then, again, there's a basic map here, but why are we doing this? So, visually, I think when you talk to people who have lived here historically, Lincoln Creek looks to be impaired. There are times when it has flowed orange in color or whitish in color. In 2021, I believe, we had a fish kill that happened in Grizzly Reservoir. The concerns being were this discoloration, was that actually creating an issue that killed the fish? The area itself at the top there is the old Ruby mine that's there, as well as some other mining claims. And so one of the thoughts was maybe that the mine itself was contributing to the contamination of the water, and that's what led to the fish kill. Colorado Parks and Wildlife, when they learned of the fish kill, based on, again, the visual observation of the creek and the old mine, contacted the EPA. The EPA came out in 2022 and did a couple of water samples. Worked with a number of local agencies, including our departments, and then put together an assessment report around what they found. And essentially what they found was that, yes, there's contamination. We have high levels of iron, aluminum, and copper in the creek, creating contamination. There wasn't definitive evidence on whether or not that created the fish kill in the reservoir, although there was certainly concern around that. They did label parts of Lincoln Creek as toxic to aquatic life based on their sampling results. And then they also made a determination based on information that there is a mineralized tributary that runs within several hundred yards of the mine itself, and that was creating the majority of the contamination, with the mine maybe contributing somewhere between 4 and 10% type of thing. So it's mostly naturally occurring. That doesn't fall under the department that the EPA, it was the Superfund department that was looking at this as to whether or not this would be a Superfund site or could be. Not that they were looking at it literally being listed, but that was part of their assessment job. They do this in other regions around the country as well. But because it's naturally caused, that doesn't fall under their purview. And so at that point, they took a step back and said, that's not our leadership to, if this needs to be addressed, this is something that the state and locals would need to address. So that point, there were a number of agencies that had been working with EPA, and there was an expressed desire to continue to look at Lincoln Creek and try to understand the watershed, how the contamination is impacting not just the watershed, but then the Roaring Fork River as well. One of the other things that came out of the EPA report was some concern that climate change may be increasing the concentrations. Essentially, the alpine permafrost that's locked up because of climate change may be melting more, coming in contact with the geology in this region. You have high levels of sulfur, create sulfuric acid, leaches metals out. That's one of the theories. And so the work group was also interested in understanding if climate change is in fact making an impact on this.
And I'd like to add that that probably would not have come out if we'd gone into this process in the coming year. We would not have had that kind of a report from them, but
Right.
but that's definitely something that was on the radar. Yep.
Right. Right. So in expressing all of this interest, the EPA did a presentation to the public in January of 2023, and so I've got the date right, 24.
It was last year,
Yeah, it was last
2024. Yep.
2024. COVID, my dates all get mixed up now. That's right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So in January of 2024, and again, the other parties were interested in continuing to do some work and try to assess how this might be impacting the region. So Lisa and I then started working with everybody, and we've come to you a couple of times with some updates, but essentially we've been taking on the leadership role with the work group to then work through. We did sampling this summer to continue to characterize the drainage and look at the sampling. When we think of the drainage, there are a number of things that impact or potentially could impact what the contaminants that are coming down the river. So one of the things the work group identified was continuing to do sampling through the next several years as a way to characterize what's going on so that we can understand what, when the EPA did their testing, was that a high, was that a low, were those averages? And we don't know that. So we did sampling last year. At the same time, we recognized that while the members in the work group had a lot of expertise in various areas around insect water quality, we had the Forest Service involved, so there were a number of agencies involved. We didn't have a lot of area of expertise around like mine drainage, or in this case what would be natural, but it's very similar to acid mine drainage. It's just naturally occurring mine or drainage, acid drainage. So we started looking to hire a contractor to provide that expertise. We went through a process last year, split up some aspects into a phase 1 and phase 2, hired a contractor to come out, do a walkthrough, look through our sampling plan for last year to make sure there weren't any issues. As you remember, and Jeffrey, you may not, you weren't here, but we had Grizzly Reservoir construction going on, so we had a couple of pieces of people doing sampling as normal above, and then we had a sampling plan around Grizzly and the construction of Grizzly, just looking at how that may or may not impact the water quality related to Lincoln Creek and then the lower river as they're doing the construction. And especially for future years, as we think about there will be maintenance on the dam as we move forward and how those impacts, we might be able to mitigate those impacts. That was that project in a nutshell. So then we had the contractor we hired, who is online with us, came out, did a site visit, and we did a little deeper dive into some of the pieces of looking at the EPA report and starting to understand a little bit more around the characterization. Why is this doing what it's doing, to get a deeper understanding of that? And ultimately, again, the idea here is not only thinking about Lincoln Creek, but the Roaring Fork River. We had a fish kill, we think in 2023, that was the North Star, that may be related to the copper coming out of Lincoln Creek. It's a little more complicated, but essentially in September we had warmer temperatures. The toxicity of copper actually goes up, so even though it's not very high, when the temperature increases, the toxicity goes up, and that may have led to that fish kill at North Star. So that's that connection to the larger Roaring Fork River. And if we're seeing increased copper concentrations coming down from Lincoln Creek because of climate change, is that something we might see more often? And if it is, do we do anything about it? And do anything could be a gambit of things. It could be do nothing. It could be trying to address at least some level of that with Lincoln Creek. So that's the background. I'm trying to be quick, but I want to make sure, Jeffrey, you had that. And so then we have CHIP online, and the contractor then prepared a memo for us based on their observations with the rest of the work group. And from here, Lisa and I, unless Lisa, you want to add anything, we can have CHIP talk through the memo that they put out last year that summarizes our field trip in September, and then their thoughts on moving forward.
Yeah, and just real briefly, actually, Chip, before we give you the go ahead. Yeah, so this was the phase one. This was about a $16,000 price tag, and it was paid for by the Independence Pass Foundation as well as the Healthy Rivers Program. And so Chip is basically going to kind of go over this memo, which is really the product that came out of phase one and after a site visit. So just to give you guys that background. Chip?
So, two
Sorry,
things.
let's do
So,
those questions.
you're talking the sediment, what do you call it, with the permafrost.
Yeah.
So, is that also referred to as glacial till, or is it different?
Different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, because we know we always have the water change colors when we have runoff in the spring to a glacial till, which is kind of that turquoisey color, a little grayer maybe. Question, but sediment. When we lowered the levels at Grizzly, did we sample the sediment, the base, the bottom
Yes, that was
mud?
done. Yep.
Okay, and I'd like to see, because that's where you'd probably find some high levels of rare minerals.
There are a number of things that we hope that will come out of that. CU had a core sampler that they came out and checked the bottom of the
They had some
reservoir.
interns working up there, didn't they?
They did.
Yes, and they actually, the professor himself was actually out there taking.
Of course,
some
who wouldn't want to
Yeah,
go up there for-
exactly. You know, 'cause and it's really a, yeah, and what's really wonderful about it is that they may be able to tell us a history on whether these metals are increasing, you know, by looking back in time through the sediments, and to actually see if there is some sort of climate change signature. So that's going to be very interesting. The interesting part about it is, though, that it looks like they don't have funding, so expect to see something related to that in the future. They're actually, we do know they're coming to the Healthy Rivers Grant Program during this cycle to ask for some money for that.
The CU program?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll wait till after we see the other presentation to ask more specifics about findings of what might be recommended we do in the future. Because, you know, I have a real issue. There's only so much you can do about Mother Nature. So, okay, thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Sure. Jeffrey, do you have questions right now?
Okay, so anything else?
I think we're good.
Chip, are you able to
Just do a quick.
do a quick?
Yep, let me, well, it's telling me I can't share while another participant is sharing.
I will stop. If I can find my. All right.
Okay.
And Chip is with LRE Water.
And he's actually tuning in from Glenwood, I believe.
That's right, yeah. So, yeah, thanks for the time today. Yeah, I'm Chip Fisher with LRE Water. I'm an engineer here. I sit in Glenwood Springs. And I'm kind of representing myself and Brent Johnson, who's unable to attend today, but he is a world-renowned expert in acid mine drainage, remediation, and acid rock drainage. So this project is right up his alley and experience. I'll do my best to address questions that he would probably be better suited to answer, but I can always bring those to him and
The volume a little bit.
send you guys a response if there are questions that you'd like answered that I'm unable to. But so I'm not going to go through every page of the memo, but if I'm assuming that it's available to all the members of the board, and it can be shared. Happy to share that with you all if you haven't seen it. Essentially, what we did was met up with the work group, traveled all the way up to Grizzly Reservoir. They were still doing construction. We were able to talk with Alan Ward of the Twin Lakes Reservoir Company about the Grizzly Reservoir project, and you know, they were relining the dam there. That's why they had to drain it down, causing that big orange release in the summer through town. and got some interesting background there. Then we traveled the rest of the way up the watershed, collecting samples at the Ruby Mine site and what's called the mineralized tributary, which are shown on this map here, down near the bottom of the figure, right near the top of the watershed for Lincoln Creek. And what we did was we just used kind of pH probes, handheld pH probes, and specific conductivity probes. So pH measures the level of acidity in the water, and specific conductivity measures the level of, indirectly measures the level of dissolved ions in the water. So particles that are able to conduct electricity, if you have more of them, your specific conductivity goes up. And generally that tracks with what's called total dissolved solids, which can be usually metals, acids, and other anions associated with salts that come out of geological formations in groundwater. But looking at the creek, as we were walking around the area just upstream of the Ruby Mine site, this picture is looking downstream, but we are above the Ruby Mine. You can start to see all this mineralized water seeping into the Lincoln Creek, and what you see there is dissolved, or precipitated aluminum, calcium, magnesium sulfate, which the sulfates in there are, coming from the sulfates in the geology in the rocks upstream in the mountain, and leaching out all these metals, which then meet with the relatively clean water of Lincoln Creek, and the pH changes, the metals crash out and form this kind of white precipitate on all the rocks. As you move down closer to the Ruby Mine site, what you start to then see is a change in color. And that sort of indicates that there's a lot more iron and copper and metals like that are more associated with acid mine drainage and acid rock drainage. And as the pH in the water changes, you get different color bands happening that are associated with those salts crashing out and precipitating onto the stream bed. And then this picture is looking right at the mineralized tributary, which is just immediately downstream of the Ruby Mine adit. And that's where sort of the really hot, we could call it hot water, is coming in, and it's not hot in temperature, but very acidic, low pH, and really high specific conductivity. So there's a ton of dissolved material in this water, which you can see by all the color variations there. Everything from aluminum sulfate and the white portions to iron and copper and the more orange and red portions of the water. And the different intensities of colors just showing how those minerals are coming out of solution and moving downstream. So we also followed up this mineralized tributary, taking samples up along it. There's not a lot of variation. There's some variation in pH and TDS as you move upwards, but more studies will help us kind of better characterize what's exactly happening in this mineralized tributary, which the EPA identified as the primary source of contaminants to Lincoln Creek. Not necessarily the Ruby Mine adit is a significant source, but not the biggest source. So while the flow in this mineralized tributary is quite low through probably most of the summer, the concentration of metals, the low pH, in other words, really highly acidic water there's a ton of capacity for dissolving metal and carrying it downstream, and that's what we're seeing from this point all the way down to Grizzly Reservoir, the entirety of that reach of Lincoln Creek. We see similarly high pH and TDS, or a specific conductivity, that is, which I'll show you on these maps. These are sort of point measurements that we took throughout the day, where we have the brighter red and orange colors up here. That's the mineralized tributary, the Ruby Mine site. And, we sampled up above in Lincoln Creek, which was a normal pH in this 5.5 to 7 range. Before it hits the mine and the mineralized tributary, then you get all this really really low pH, high acidity water coming in. And from that point all the way down in Lincoln Creek, we were measuring these more in this yellow range, 3.5 to 4.5 pH throughout Lincoln Creek. As we were driving back down towards Grizzly Reservoir, we also measured some of these clean water tributaries coming in, these more minor, a lot of them are unnamed. And those are coming in at a normal pH range, 6.5 to 7.5, so just neutral water. So we're not sure all of the tributaries that are contributing metals, but it's likely that it's just this really concentrated area up near the Ruby Mine site. So there's some clean water coming in from these minor drainages, which is increasing the pH back towards neutral. But by the time it gets to Grizzly Reservoir, it's still in the 3.5 to 4.5 pH range, which is still very acidic. And then we also tested water coming out of Grizzly Reservoir right at the tunnel intake to Twin Lakes Reservoir, and it was still in that range. So the effects of the Ruby Mine and mineralized tributary are felt throughout that entire reach, several miles of Lincoln Creek. And then it's a similar story for specific conductivity. So we're seeing not very many metals in the creek naturally up above the mine in the mineralized tributary. But then right at that point where the tributary and the mine are coming in, really high loading of metals, and in this range, in this orange and red dot range, starting to see really, really high concentrations of metals all the way down to Grizzly Reservoir. By the time we get to Grizzly, the story is slightly different for specific conductivity. A lot of that material can settle out in the bottom of the reservoir, and so some of that loading metals and other dissolved minerals ends up in the sediment at the bottom of the reservoir. So yeah, essentially what we were finding, or our recommendations coming out of this site visit was to do some additional analysis, get a little bit, take a year or so to better characterize the watershed. Not turning this into a research project that lasts forever or takes forever. That is not the goal here. Understanding that we want to move towards a point of understanding that we can start to evaluate potential mitigation options, dealing with either the mineralized tributary or the mine or both. There's some different approaches that can be done to mitigate the mine, the acid rock drainage and acid mine drainage in that area. There's sort of light touch options that are more passive treatment that can be done, and don't even involve necessarily the building of structures or treatment equipment, low maintenance, all the way up to active treatment that requires a heavy hand and a lot of daily involvement and work from operators and people like that. But those are certainly not the preferred options at this point. Yeah, so all this work basically leads into our next phase, which Lisa and Kurt can talk more about, but that'll be working with myself and Brent working with the work group to develop a really targeted sampling and analysis plan for the Lincoln Creek area, what metals we want to characterize and over what time periods, and measuring stream flow, getting a really good sense of the hydrology of the Lincoln Creek watershed and the climate around the Lincoln Creek watershed. So precipitation, snowfall, and sunlight, because all these things can drive what's happening with the acid rock and acid mine drainage higher up in the watershed, and are all sort of getting towards answering these questions of, is this a climate change driven process? Is this natural variation, that maybe lasts on cycles, well outside of human timescales? Those are the kinds of questions we can start to answer that'll target whether treatment is appropriate and what kind of treatment we can do if it is appropriate. So I'll maybe leave it at that and see if I can figure out how to
All right,
stop
thanks,
sharing.
Chip. Let's check in and see if we have questions. I'll jump in. I'm wondering, relative to, do we have a good sense of the geology of the surrounding area? I guess I'm trying to sync up in my mind why we would have clean tributaries and then not this clean tributary.
Right.
Is this sort of an isolated composition of minerals here?
Well, the short answer is yes. So the EPA had geologists out with their original report. However, one of the goals of the work group moving forward is to, as part of the characterization and the better characterization, is to really do an even deeper dive with geology. It's not completely unique to this area. You can see it in other parts of the state, but here at least it's very localized geology. If you look at the aerial view, and I can bring it up, the mountain itself, you can see all of the different colors from the iron that are already there. So that's what's contributing to the fact of this, the Lincoln Creek itself being contaminated with the natural source.
It's a great question because there is a cutthroat trout population above the
it.
Ruby Mine area, which
Right.
is, and one of the interns actually caught one of the
Whoa, yay.
fish up there.
Yep.
He was very excited. So,
Catch and release.
very, yes. So very bizarre, frankly, but I guess there's one benefit to that, and that is other fish can't get up there to,
Eat them.
Yeah.
Well, we're just wondering, can you just route the
compete. Yeah.
runoff? Right.
That's, again, I think there are a number of ideas still. We're not there. That's a piece that I'll talk about in a second that is the future of what the heck do we do, if anything. So, Chip, do you mind stopping sharing for me?
I'm not sure I know how. You coach me through.
There should be a little red button on top.
Up top.
Says stop share.
Let's see.
On the Zoom screen.
Yeah.
Okay. I closed the.
Oh.
Oh.
Far cuter.
If you go
That's my
back
daughter.
to your if you go back to your Zoom window, there should be a button that says stop share on there. So if you go maybe to the bottom of your window to the Zoom icon, and then that should pull up our meeting.
Oh, I got it.
There you go.
Okay,
It's
hang
that
on.
one on the
I-
right. Yep. Oh yeah.
let's see.
There you go.
I don't have anything that important.
Oh, here it is. It's
Yeah.
it showed up on a different screen. I had to look far away. I got it now. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now let's talk a little bit about moving forward. So Lisa and I mentioned we split up the work groups ideas into a phase 1 and a phase 2. And the phase 1 was to get a contractor out here on site quickly and look through what we were doing in last year. Phase 2 is really then what we're looking at. And we met as a work group to solidify those ideas, as well as we met with Chip and Brent to talk about what their ideas were for moving the project forward. So the tasks that we have identified for this year really is still around data collection, right? We still are looking to characterize and understand the contaminants. As Chip talked about, we have some other tributaries. They appear to be not carrying any contaminants, but a couple of goals there. We're looking at characterizing or getting more data this year and probably a few more years afterwards to build a model of what's going on with all of the inputs. Ultimately, that is to then build a model. It's called a mass balance model. That's part of in the phase 2, there's an explanation of it. Essentially what we're doing there then is saying, here are all the inputs. If we start messing with trying to make reductions somehow, here's what the end result is down at the Roaring Fork is the concept. So it starts to help us with understanding, again, is there a low cost, easy thing that we can do to make some reductions that actually pays off down here? Or is it really going to be a couple of tweakings here isn't going to actually give us a lot at the Roaring Fork, the convergence with the Roaring Fork. So that's what that model is intending to do. And so what we are looking to do is, again, collect more data this year so that we can understand, get the couple of sources that haven't been measured to see if, in fact, they are contributing zero, not zero, so that we understand all of the different inputs. So there's a data collection piece as well, looking at a sampling plan and establishing a little more long-term sampling plan so that we have some consistency. We had Grizzly Reservoir last year. We had the EPA data. So we'll take that information and then create a sampling plan not only for this year with various sampling points and when we will do them. For water, as well as we're thinking about aquatic life as well and insects. Right now we don't collect a lot of insects, but we have agencies in the work group that have been collecting insect samples or trying to. The Forest Service has been doing that. So there's two aspects of that. We have the data that we produced this year. We're still waiting on the final results. That's being produced by Colorado Parks and Wildlife, their River Watch program, if you're familiar with that. They have a lab. They have taken all of our water samples, and then this last winter, they have been running those samples and producing the data. So then we need to sit down and do data analysis with the contractor and the rest of the work group. And then looking not only at the data we're producing, but then the historical data that we have with the EPA report and then some other historical data that we have around that to start to get that comparison, because we don't have a robust piece. The EPA's report was really basing what their results were off of some old data, and again, not a lot of data there. So that's where, again, getting additional data is going to help us with understanding climate change and just the overall concentrations that are going on. Are we seeing big curves because of the hydrological cycle, where we have heavy winters, where we have a lot of water in the system versus not? So,
And Kurt, I would also add, to what extent are operations of Grizzly Reservoir affecting or not affecting the stream and the impacts of the minerals?
Yep. Thanks, Chip. So those are the big goals for this year, and then we have been working. LRE Water has come back with a phase 2 scope of work based on those ideas of what we wanted to do as a work group. We have that proposal, and then I know last week Lisa came. She's been working with the Healthy Rivers Board around getting a contract with LRE Water and the funding for that signed to then start getting these all of these pieces in place and moving forward for this summer.
And as you guys have seen, you have the scope of work. This is what has been decided upon a couple meetings through a subcommittee. Then the larger Lincoln Creek work group was able to have a look at this, and Chip and Brent were on that call. They were on calls with the subcommittee, so we feel like it's pretty dialed down at this point. I just want to add on to what Chip said about Grizzly Reservoir. So it's of interest potentially, is managing water with this, the solution to pollution is dilution kind of thing. So there may be some aspect, of looking at management operations. Who knows? We're going to try and put everything on the table, just to add that.
Do you have a question?
I have a bunch, but I don't know if Jeffrey wanted to jump in first.
So thank you. A couple questions for you. One, the September memo talks about Ruby Mine.
Mm-hmm.
Has that relationship changed in 6 months? There's a smile.
There's a smile because I realized that was the other piece that I
Yeah, sorry.
should have tied around my finger. The other piece, we already have a work group member reaching out to Ruby Mine. Wasn't clear to us that if the EPA did that in there, they were looking for the owner, but we're not sure that happened. So we had a work group volunteer who stepped up to say, oh, they were going to reach out to them this year to see what their interest is. Do they want to be part of the work group? How that's going to go? Obviously, we don't know the answer, but we're working on that piece.
Great, because that read in the memo as a risk. And was today's funding announcement related to phase 2 that came out from April, I think earlier today? $150,000 grant?
Yes, this is related to that
Okay.
directly, yep.
And then can you give us a framework or a draft mitigation approach? Just
Well, I
not
think it's-
go
yeah.
spend the $250,000, but before that,
Yeah. Well, I think that there's all sorts of pieces of the puzzle here that reflect that, right? Like there's been talk of, again, it's a natural system. Can we do anything to even address this? That's one of the questions. The other is, gosh, well, we've seen water processing systems in place that, cost $40 million, right? Doesn't seem like that's probably a reasonable approach either for cost, access, all sorts of things. And then there's everything in between, right? Some of the memo talks a little bit about some of just the simple ideas that they had. Again, I think one of the important things to me in producing this model is that starts to help us understand what some of these mitigation efforts might get us. And then it comes back to the debate, and this is a larger debate that we will have to have. What do you all want to do? What does the community want to do? What is the value there in trying to mitigate that? And we haven't even tried to solve that yet because it's such a big issue. And I think right now just understanding what the different inputs are and how when we start to make those impacts, how those impacts are going to affect overall the system are the important things to answer now. And then we can start thinking about mitigation and what that even looks like. Is that helpful? It's a really hard question right now because it just, again, you talk to different people and it's this side of the equation of big processing plants. You talk to other people and it's like, can we really even do anything? And I think those are all very fair questions that we still can't get to until we get through some data and modeling.
no, that's a fair answer. I was waiting for you to say remove, lower TDS or lower turbidity or
Right.
just sort of more mission questions of what's the win for the tributary
Yeah.
and
Ultimately,
There is a mission, I think.
yeah, there is, and I think that would be so copper is identified as the most toxic of the metals that we're dealing with. So I think the most obvious would be getting a reduction in those metals. Copper, aluminum, and iron are the other two. The toxicity of those is not as high for both human and aquatic life. So if there's a goal of the mitigation, I would think we would be starting with looking at those copper levels and bringing them down. Sorry, I didn't realize that's what you were getting at. It was an easier answer
I didn't
than
want to
thought.
answer the question.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'll add just a little bit, speaking for Brent, he's looked at systems really similar to this all over the world and has had success with doing small changes up high in the watershed that maybe don't completely erase the problem, but get it to the point where, we are not concerned with fish health, in most years or in many years. So it's not a completely mysterious or impossible task, if that helps.
And one other piece of that is CPW is looking into should they or shouldn't they be stocking fish in Grizzly Reservoir. So those kinds of things are happening, and this will help feed into their question and answer.
I'm going to ask a question on this real quick. So I guess I'm a little unclear. What is the sampling plan for fish tissue? And did we have any advisories on fishing?
Colorado Parks and Wildlife was working with the fish tissue piece. That was outside the scope of the work group, but I think that is one of the pieces as we move into our development of the long-term sampling plan. It's not just water, it's insects as well, and it's fish. One of the things that they talked about in doing some of the initial work was that the copper itself, because that's the most toxic, typically stores in the gut of fish, not in the flesh of fish. And so the consumption, that's one of the reasons why there's not been this automatic, we're not stocking fish, because it's not clear the levels that we're talking about, are they really truly a health concern that we need to, and they're still looking at that. So,
And we were trying to cover what, like, say, CPW wouldn't cover.
Yeah.
right.
So there's that.
Right, and that's part of the sampling plan as well, because we have a number of agencies involved that all have our own interests. So where are we covering, we as in this project, the sampling, sorry. Pulled that up. I was trying to come down
Like,
here
that's
to.
not-
Brand new volcano in Yellowstone?
The colors were similar.
We're not gonna have to worry about Lincoln Creek. There are a number of agencies that are already doing their own work, right? So part of this sampling plan is trying to lay out what it is that we're doing and what it is that these other agencies are already doing and working in conjunction together. Like CPW is already doing some of that work itself, so we don't want to duplicate those efforts.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so I read the EPA report. It was very thin. Didn't delve into a lot of depth and detail. And so I can't remember gold and silver mining or just silver.
I don't know. the
We don't have a
answer
lot of
to
gold
that.
mining in this side of the valley.
Silver.
My instinct is silver, but I would have to verify that.
And no processing up there. There was no like leaching or use of acids. That's usually in the mining of gold process, not in the mining of silver.
Right. I don't believe there was processing.
So we can't contribute, we can't assume or whatever, look at the potential of the mining process affecting the water quality as far as acidity. I don't think we've reached that.
We would, so as part of this, we would verify that is not the case. However, given the amount that you have of like acid that you would need, I can't imagine how this isn't naturally occurring. I brought this
Hydrosulfuric.
picture up when we're talking about pHs, and it was in the memo. And the red side, that's a different pH than the white side. That's
Right.
2.9
Right.
pH, which is, battery acid low, right? And pretty amazing and quite shocking, frankly. If you look up the mineralized tributary, there's no plant life. And again, that's just one
You
of
could
those
tell, you could
indicative
see
of how
that.
acidic
It's
it is.
pretty naked,
And then the clear water itself is something more like 5.3-ish.
so it's coming,
Right, so it's coming up, and so that's why you're seeing the different colors, because you're just getting
coming more
the different
alkaline than
pHs are
acidic.
dropping out different precipitates. But that's if you think about the volume of what that would take, the natural process that the EPA started listing out makes sense. That's what we want to confirm, but it would make sense just because, again, the volumes we're talking about to
Right.
continue to have that pH that low is, you would think that would, what is the source of that? It would almost
Right,
need
and
to be
I think the
something-
other problem we have up there is access to the mine itself because of its private property. So that's why your point is how do we work? And then on the private property owner's side, there's huge liability. They may want to stay out of this fray if something was to come and they were, yeah. But anyway, I'm concerned about I think we need to do ongoing testing, water quality, and then correlate that with temperatures and water flow and all of that so we can see, the climate change issue or not, or dilution factors, et cetera. I think that's an important part of it. I think that's part of the whole sampling process. The other thing is I don't imagine we would be putting a water treatment plant up there. It's a pristine neck of the woods, literally neck of the woods. Access to it is very difficult, even in a heavy-duty four-wheel drive. It's a rough road. That would be more devastating to the environment than anything I can imagine. I do have a question about Red Mountain Pass. Driving back and forth from here to Durango, you get to the top of the pass, and it's very clearly copper, iron, probably more, I don't know if it's more iron, but
Lead.
I don't know if we've looked at similarities between studies they've done there. If they have done any, it might be interesting comparison data to see if they've already been researching that over there.
The EPA
Oh,
was
she's like-
looking at, the EPA, and I didn't know if you want to
No,
answer.
go
me.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one of the pieces that not only the EPA, but in that work group, they had some of the state agencies, DRMS, Division of Mining and Safety, They were identifying some of the other places in the state and doing some comparisons. I think there's some information out there, but I think we're also, as a work group, we're a little more organized and we're out ahead of everyone. And one of the things I keep hearing is that there are a lot of people interested in how we
Watching
look
us.
at this, watching
Yes.
us, because
I've heard that
we may
before.
end up being a model for
Correct.
other areas and how this gets addressed or doesn't get addressed.
Well, and I know there's been some efforts in Alaska because of the climate change and the permafrost, et cetera, issues, and what it's releasing that Mother Nature put there for a reason, and it was storing it until now. So it's really hard to, again, clean up Mother Nature, but I think monitoring it is the best thing we can do at this time. We just need to figure out partners and funding.
Right.
And I didn't see a thing was it from April Long? You said, yeah, it came out today?
There was an award announcement today for $150,000.
Really?
We did not see an award announcement for that, but we are
For
going
Lincoln
to.
Creek?
For Lincoln Creek Work Group, it was out today.
Where did
I'm
you
surprised
see
Lincoln Creek Work Group didn't hear about
We
it.
applied for it. And in fact, Lisa was supposed to go on Monday.
Congratulations.
that? Well, that's very interesting, and I'm curious to find out later, Jeffrey, where you've seen that.
Where'd
Both
you
of
see that?
Lisa and I are very curious.
Oh,
I think
these are applications for the roundtable.
Yeah.
DSRS.
So,
made it.
so I think that what will happen is, what I have
We'll have a chance
heard.
to vote on Monday.
Yes, we will give a 5 to 10 minute presentation on Monday at the Basin Roundtable meeting in Glenwood. And, they may or may not give us the full 150,000 we have heard. So they are definitely considering it. So it sounds like we will get some funding, and potentially not all, but that would be great just to get some. So.
Apologies for my
That's
early-
okay.
early
Yeah,
interruption.
you're very confident. We like that. So if we could just look to
Yeah.
see if there's been anything you may already know done at Red Mountain, because I just know it's so visual when you drive that road
It's
to
a
go
really,
to Durango.
yes, I've done a lot of field work up there actually, related to plants,
Attend
but,
on Monday and vote for it.
still on the ground. So
You don't-
what's
you're not.
interesting is,
on the train.
the CU group is very knowledgeable about a lot of the natural, sites across the state. In fact, they had a map in their presentation, that showed a lot of, other sites that were around the state. Not that many really, that had this kind of natural acid rock drainage like us.
Well, yeah, and a lot of those other sites did gold mining and processed with acid. So that's not a good thing. But we didn't do gold mining here because of our geology. It was silver, lead.
And silver and lead.
So, yeah, so it'd be interesting to see. But thank you. Great information.
Yep.
And I'm
Awesome.
sorry I
Thanks.
haven't been able to attend most of or any. I followed the notes that you send me, but they conflict with our regular meetings.
Yeah.
The OCC.
We did have a Zoom, their presentation that they did give, which Chip gave a very great summary of, that was actually recorded, if you're ever
Yeah,
interested.
yeah, and I get notes from Kurt, sends out great
Awesome.
information.
That-
Thank you very
that's-
much for that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Last slide, I just wanted to point out the number of agencies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're involved. That's actually, I think, really impressive, because again, this is a work group that these are willing. This isn't required of any of us, and yet we're 16 healthy agencies and some private citizens. So,
Yeah,
Anyway.
they're very interested.
Thank you for
thank you.
shepherding all that. Nice to see you.
Good group.
Yep,
Thank you.
we appreciate the updates.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I need to stop sharing.
All right, we're going to move on to citizen board interviews. I'll invite Charlotte up, and Ann Mullins, if you want to come get comfy, is our first applicant.
Hi, ladies.
Charlotte usually gives us a lay of the land as to the status of the boards that we're interviewing for today. Hi.
Hi. Okay, so we have Ann Mullins with us. She has applied for the Airport Advisory Board. We have actually 2 alternate vacancies, one with a 1-year term, one with a 2-year term, because those were, we moved up Andrew to a regular position, and then Barry resigned. So when we're replacing those, we assume the term that was left vacant. We have 3 more interviews after Ann's today, so that I think we'll have a couple more next week. and then one on April 1st before I give you a wrap-up of all of the renewals and the new applications. So I think that covers it.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks, Anne. Nice to see you. Yeah, I haven't run into you in a while, but we've been on email over some things. So great to see you in person.
Yeah.
And normally what we do is invite you to talk about why you want to be on the Airport Advisory Board, and then we'll open it up for questions from commissioners. And then, as Charlotte indicated, we have a bunch of other interviews scheduled, and so I think we have time in April where we're going to discuss all of our board appointments, and then you will be informed at that time.
Okay.
That works okay?
So,
Bye.
first, thanks for the opportunity to interview for this position. And sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. But I'll start by giving a brief intro to myself, mostly for Commissioner Woodruff, because I think the other two commissioners at the table know me a little better. We've worked together for a long time. I came to Aspen in '71. Well, they may not know all of this, actually.
Yeah, probably not.
I came to Aspen in 1971. I ski bummed for a few years before I left and went to get a master's degree in landscape architecture. And then I worked various places in the country, Seattle, Boston, Portland, in landscape architecture, landed in Denver, and co-founded my own landscape architecture firm down there, Civitas, in 1982. And it was pretty successful. Left after 20 years, came back up here in 2005. I've owned a house in Aspen since 1996. That was a good call on my part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was on HPC for 8 years, chair most of that time. Then I was on city council for another 8-year, 2 4-year terms, and finished that up in 2021. And currently am following up on some initiatives that I brought forward at the council table, and now on the other side of the table we're following through those initiatives and also continuing my work in landscape architecture. So there are several reasons I think I could be a valuable member of the AAB. And Kelly, you mentioned this, but do you want me to go through all those, or do you want to start with questions?
No, go through it.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So last fall, I worked on the Community Coalition for 21st Century Airport, and subsequent campaign, a whole lot of people for a better airport, which both supported ballot 1C, which reaffirmed BoCC's ability to make decisions about the airport, and supported the BoCC's decision about the airport layout plan. I learned an enormous amount about the airport, what it needs, the process for getting things done, current conditions, forecasted conditions, what opportunities were available for the runway, the terminal, transportation, multimodal system, and environmentally responsible development. During the process, I was really inspired and excited, not only by the people I was working with, but by all the possibilities, and became really invested in the process, particularly interested in what we could come up with a really innovative, efficient, effective, user-friendly transportation system that would not only benefit airport users, but I think potentially change traffic patterns in the valley. So number one reason I would be an effective member of the AAB is my enthusiasm and the hard work I put in and will continue to put in to learn about how to move this facility forward in a good way, in the best way. Secondly, during my work on the campaign last fall, I presented to and met with numerous groups throughout the country, county and city. And I actually counted up last night. There were I think 10 groups that I found that I'd give presentations to, and large and small. Most of the presentations were resulting in support for 1C, which was great. Final numbers were, as you I'm sure know, 66.8% for, 33.2% against, a resounding mandate to the county to move forward with the airport as planned. So relationship building, I think, is essential to AAB to communicate and interact with the community and gain the support of the community. And I think I've developed some very good relationships and credibility with the many groups I interacted with during the campaign. In addition, as you all know, we'll have a new city council in the next few weeks. I've worked with and have a very good relationship with the mayor, with Rachel, and the new mayor and several other council members. A stronger connection with and stronger support from the city for what the county is doing with the airport, I think is invaluable to the AAB, and I think I could really help with that. Last, in my profession as a landscape architect, I've had experience with large-scale projects. My firm actually worked on DIA in the early 90s when the project first started, so airport experience. The experience is useful from the initial evaluation of RFQs and RFPs through the design process, understanding design drawings, and lastly, the specifics of creating a sustainable layout and landscape plan for the airport. So after all that, I'd love it if you'd consider me for a position on the board, and what questions do you have?
Okay, let's open it up. Do you have any, Patty?
I just want to thank you. Ann did an amazing
That's nice.
job working on the ballot issue. Ann and I had known each other politically and best friends, but we never actually worked on an issue together. So it was not an easy issue to jump right in on. She did create great relationships, but how do you see, or do you see the need to, I don't want to say rely on those relationships, but bring those relationships back into the fold for support as we move forward?
Whatever outreach is planned in the future, and I assume that each phase that we go into now as we get approval from the FAA and however we're moving forward and whatever outreach we're doing, that's where I'd utilize those relationships, calling those people that I talk to, those groups that I talk to. I think it's more up to the county to decide how to plan the communication strategy. But I think in that, I can step in and really help implement that communication strategy.
Great, thank you.
Jeff, any questions for Ann?
Oh, he's winding up over there.
No, I think so you're working with Fentress on the original?
Yeah,
so
Fentress.
You guys
Yeah.
were neighbors? Were you Golden Triangle at that point?
We were neighbors at work and neighbors
Yeah.
at home. They lived
funny.
across the street from us.
Funny. No, I was going to offer you some more softballs. Going through your CV, what is Great Expectations working on right now? I was going to get away from transportation for a minute. Great writers?
Oh, great books.
Great books. That's why I looked at both of you. I'm like, what are you reading? Doesn't always have to be a transportation question.
Well, this was really exciting.
The Federalist Papers.
Talk about anxiety. No, last year I was asked to participate in that, and it's a course that goes over 5 weeks, starting late January through February. And John has done it previously. It's quite challenging. The readings are tough, and the group is great. There's 25 people participating, but you are the moderator, so you need to, as I learned, you need to know everything that might get addressed during the meeting, and not control the meeting, but manage the meeting. And I tell you, the first session was pretty scary, but I've never done anything like that before. But it turned out just great, and wonderful group of people. Worked with Paul Anderson, who's so knowledgeable, and we're actually having a planning meeting on Friday with Crystal Logan to plan for next year.
So what book though? What was the book? Do you have one book you read in that 5 weeks?
Selections from lots of books, and Ann did a great job.
That's tough. I'm having a hard time keeping up with my granddaughter's book club.
Putting the reader together is the tough part.
Well, you start with Plato and Aristotle, and I kind of thought, really? That for
Bob
a long
Ross
time.
theme.
Yeah, and we ended up with a book by Bill Haas, who spoke at CMC last October,
Oh, yeah.
called Bill of Expect,
That's
Bill
a
of
great
Obligations.
book. Bill of Obligations.
Yeah, it was the last session was, at least half the session was going over that
That's a
book.
good book.
Yeah, it was a great book.
Sign me up. I just finished Frederick Rowe on walking and Seneca, so
Oh,
I
okay.
think this is on my wavelength.
We also had
To
music.
your people.
Yeah.
We would do songs and it just pulling anything in that talked about democracy or how Americans view democracy and support democracy. So
Perfect timing.
it was fascinating.
Other questions? I can jump in. Okay. And a couple questions. I know you travel a bit. Is this a time commitment that you are eager to wrap into your busy schedule?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, and I'm very happy to report. Kelly's referring to I think, my son lives in London with my grandson and daughter-in-law, and they are, next month, he's coming over to look at preschools in Boulder. They're planning to move to Boulder. Yeah. So it's a long story, but it works for his business and works for their little boy, and so they'll be in Boulder by probably next fall.
Wonderful.
And that's most of my traveling.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
I thought you were going to say boarding preschool. I'm like, oh, they have a boarding preschool in Boulder now?
Yeah, they're going to ship them
Whoa.
off. No, it's it's
I didn't know that.
well, I just got back about
Yeah.
4 days ago, and that was most of our discussion was them coming over. And I said, oh, well,
Yay.
That's
I'll
exciting
help
for
you with
you.
that.
And then my other question is, and you know, I'm just really speculating here, but you know, we have missed the city having an appointee to the AAB. They did not have their ex officio appointed for some time,
Right.
and I'm not sure what they're contemplating over there, but I have had some outreach from some of the council people about potentially appointing a citizen rather than a staff. And so is that something, if for some reason we should select other people for the board, is that an avenue that you would consider? It's currently a non-voting position.
right.
And so I'm just curious your input on
So at their meeting on Monday, they Ward spoke up and commented on the void of not having someone there since Sarah Ott had left that board, and suggested a citizen to fill that slot, and just requested they appoint him at the meeting. And I can't remember, another council member said, well, if we're going to do that, we should put it out to the public. So it is being put out as I'm not sure, I looked today to see how it's advertised. I think it's advertised in the paper, and it's definitely on the website. They are going to invite people that are interested on, would it be the 24th? Yeah, Monday the 24th, to interview, and then at their council meeting on the 25th, they'll decide on a citizen representative.
Okay.
And it sounds like, yes, it is a citizen, not a council member or staff member. And I considered it, but it's a non-voting position, and so that's why I'm
Yeah,
interviewing
that's a
with you.
great idea, though. It never hurts to look in. I knew we were looking for somebody to fill it, but I didn't know the city was thinking about citizen appointment, but
Yeah.
might be.
I actually
Well, we won't
received
have
an
our
application
decision made by
yesterday.
then, so it's just something.
Oh, they did?
food for thought.
Well,
What's that,
Wow.
Charlotte?
I actually received an application yesterday and communicated with the gentleman because I was like, oh, we've closed ours. But I didn't know they were advertising, and so
Oh,
he
so it was
sent
for
me
the
a
city
snapshot of the
position.
ad, and I was like, oh, this is the city.
Yeah, okay,
So
great. Well, I appreciate the update.
And then we
and that's
also
all I
have
have,
our
yeah.
other subcommittees too that might be of interest. We have we're gonna look at creating,
Yeah, I don't think those haven't formally come to us
Yeah.
yet for any
They're
structure.
coming pretty soon.
Okey doke. Anyway, lots of opportunity on the airport, and thank you, Anne. It's been so wonderful to work with you on so many things.
Oh,
And so
thanks.
we'll stay
You too.
tuned. Yes,
Oh.
thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Good to
guys.
talk Stoics.
And so we'll get together and talk about the awards thing.
Right, she called me back, I missed her
Okay,
call.
we'll
We'll-
talk more. Okay,
we'll follow
thank
up on
you.
that.
Okay. And then is Jasmine online?
Thank you very much.
I don't know if she's
Thank you,
much of
Anne.
Thanks,
an
Anne.
online user, but okay, I don't see Jasmine. Is it Tigray, Tigray, I believe. Did you hear from her?
She's not online? Okay, because she had contacted me and asked that she do it virtually because she was having some furniture moved or
Okay.
something delivered.
Is Zachary online yet? Or
I'm not sure if Zach is
I don't see him
attending
anywhere. I haven't seen, I'm
or
watching people, but I haven't seen him come up.
haven't seen him.
well, why don't we cover future agendas and give
Perfect.
time for folks to join in case they're running late or otherwise.
Just a second.
No problem. I gotta pull
Caught me
mine up as well.
multitasking.
And we did appoint Jackie and Meg again, right? Because their applications were in the file.
Correct.
Okay.
You guys
So we can-
approved them without
We can move
another
those
interview.
along.
Gosh, excuse me.
Okay, just getting it.
They look like
No
Zach.
worries. I'll just remind, I am gonna be out on spring break with my kiddos next week, and our honorable vice chair will take over on the 25th and 26th.
All right. And then I just had a reminder that the Baywell site visit's been scheduled for April 4th. It will be in this week's packet, but the plan is to meet at Basalt Town Hall at 11:30 unless other arrangements are made. And a tour of the tent and lodge will begin at 12:30.
So
And I think Leslie's picking up a car. Is that right, Jeff?
we're meeting at Town Hall with Leslie, but just double check that what went out from Civic Clerk said it's 11:30 to 12:30. So it may need to be adjusted in terms of time, just so someone doesn't get there and think it's over.
Yes.
And I think
Please.
Leslie was gonna pick up a car from here.
I can check with her.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of the plan, because then I'll just ride with her, and then we'll figure it out. Thanks, Kurt.
That's actually all I had for future agendas.
Okay. Any other items? Let's see. Francie would like, and she spoke with us during open discussion at the end of our last meeting, about inviting CPW to talk with us about bears at our landfill. Apparently, we have the highest number of interactions of bears of any landfill CPW is aware of.
Funny, yeah, because I told you I talked to Kathy Hall, and she said they had minimal bear activity this year. So we need a clarification there, and who the bears are seeing and who the bears they're not seeing. Yeah, that would be great.
So the board agreed to extend that invitation to CPW at whenever they're available to come to us. Are there other items for
I
future
have.
agendas?
I don't know if anybody else would like to attend the award ceremony for the historic award we got for the courthouse. Apparently, in talking with Ann Mullins, who sits on the board for that organization, and I have all the information written down at home when I talked to Ann. Dana Crawford, I think, is the name of the foundation. And Ann said that generally, when the community receives the award, like the mayor comes and the city council comes, and I didn't know if there's any other members that might want to attend. If so, Ann has a table. If we need more seats, if anybody wants to go, it's the 15th. It's a Thursday. It's the 15th of May. Just to let people know, if anybody's interested, let me know and we can figure something out. I am definitely going and doing the little video clip as far as the background of the project.
All right, thanks, Patty. Anything else?
Then I did get a call from a woman from down Valley. I told Kelly, she has an organization that works a lot with other organizations. I'm asking her for, she wants some agenda time, work session, but I need more clarification, and I'll bring it back to Kelly and Jeffrey. Once I get from her the information she was supposed to send me, which I have not received yet, but I'm working on it. I'll let Kelly know when I get it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Jeffrey.
I would request, we have a record of decision conversation as well as an executive session. I would request an AIS for the record of decision, basically distilling the 350 pages down to really the impact and the role of Pitkin County, if I could, please.
Okay.
We all thought you were going to read that thing cover
I
to cover
shall.
for sure.
We're gonna ask you for the distillation, Jeffrey, but
You told me yesterday you were reading it. I have it on record. I was tape recording.
I would like a legal brief in addition to my own
I think
reading of
that would-
Seneca and the Rod.
I think that's what Rye's planning to do in exec, is to give us the legal brief at that time. But
yeah, and we can give just the historical bullet points.
I think
of-
Brian's pretty
yeah.
up to speed on the Rod.
That's what I was really asking for.
You don't want a legal debrief. You want just the history.
Thank you.
And I will just say I'm planning to be out on May 6th. Depending on the agenda, maybe I will join remotely, but I'm going to a family reunion for my niece's quinceanera.
And that's a Wednesday.
That's a Tuesday.
What's a Tuesday?
There's no Wednesday meeting that week.
May 5th is a Tuesday?
May 6th
Oh,
is a Tuesday.
I thought I thought the Economic Development District thing was May 5th, and that was a Thursday. I'm really confused.
You're looking at last year's calendar, yeah. Okay. Anything else for open discussion? Future agendas?
I have a lot for open discussion.
Okay. Well, let's check online to see if maybe we'll take a break until 2:15, and so assuming Zachary will join us for his interview. I don't want to get too far into open discussion items and then have to cut us off. So I'm gonna call for a 4-minute break to 2:15, and we'll give Zachary some time to show up. Okay, thank you. right, welcome back, everyone, to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, March 18th. We are going to start our open discussion, and then if our candidates for planning and zoning arrive, we will pivot towards their interviews.
Okay, well, we have a number of items that we want to cover. I see Levi say in the back here we have a couple of legislative items. Levi, why don't we kick off with those so I can get my voice back for the rest of them.
Yep.
You can
Hi,
just, you
Levi.
can just come up when. Hi, good afternoon.
Or you tag teaming, you're not here on separate items.
Yeah, I brought the heavy hitters for one of them. Happy A panelist.
Spinach and mushroom is the answer. That was
Oh, the coconut cream was pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the refrigerator lemon cherry.
Oh, that was really good too. It wasn't
I'm
too
getting the
sweet.
recipe for that one.
That was
Pie Day.
Levi, what pie did you make?
I didn't participate. I was a social science guy, so we didn't mess with pie that much.
I didn't make any pies either, even though they're my favorite.
I just want to know if his chickens are laying eggs yet.
Help me.
He doesn't fold them in the winter with warm lights. He lets them rest for the winter. We're talking about your chickens, Levi.
What about them?
That you let them rest over the winter.
Yeah, they should get a
A little break.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't heat them up and force them to lay all winter.
We've got
But we're
6.
back on now.
We got 6 new ones.
Good afternoon.
right.
Sorry, I'll jump in.
No, all good. I mean, chickens and eggs are hot topics these days.
That's right.
so.
That's right. Supplementing my income. So I'm Levi Borst, management analyst with Pickens County, and I'm just here for a really quick, I guess, discussion about 2 legislative items that have kind of popped up on the radar, and we're hoping to bounce off the board and recommend some direction, hopefully get some direction going forward. So I'm sorry I do have a couple slides, but they should be pretty quickly. Should be pretty quick.
Always prepared.
So the first is a piece of legislation that's been introduced in the House that's automated permits for clean energy technology. I assume to some degree you're probably all fairly familiar with this. It requires local governments to adopt an automated solar permitting software that will issue permits to applicants and report our compliance to the CEO. You know, we're pretty clean energy forward here, but there were a couple of concerns that have been raised through some of our member organizations that I'll detail here. So it mandates the use of a permitting software, and near as we can figure, there's only one available that meets the bill to do all these things. A lot of concern from our fellow counties is that it's incompatible with our finance and billing software. And at least as of last year, there were grant dollars available to make this voluntary. So counties could opt in and could use the software and have funding from the state provided that would help them integrate. Of course, this year, knowing what we know of our budget, grant dollars are a pretty big question mark, and there's a real concern that those dollars won't actually be there. So when we need to implement the software in 2026, we'll be on the hook to pay for it and to troubleshoot all of the implementation for it. As an aside, there's a third-party workaround that bridges the gap between finance and billing software and also to the permitting software, and so that's just another third-party vendor we'd need to work with. So in transparency, there's some concern about where the push for this legislation is coming from, because obviously Solar App is the name of the company that fits the bill, and they're huge proponents, because if all counties in the state were forced to use that software, obviously that would probably be good for them. So this legislation doesn't make any distinction between jurisdictions that are already doing well with solar permitting and those that are not. It definitely paints local governments as the roadblock to why we're not seeing more solar integration and implementation across the state, and ignoring other obvious concerns. So electric company concerns, or any number of other sort of reasons you can imagine that this process wouldn't go as quickly as we'd like. Probably most concerning are two things. On the second to last item, it doesn't allow for any local government consideration of zoning conformance. So I think we'd be worried about how we determine which projects are appropriate, which ones aren't, and also if inspections go to remote inspections. I'm sorry, I don't have that as a bullet point. It allows for remote inspections, then I think we really lose a lot of control over compliance. For what it's worth, CC4CA, one of our member organizations, our climate action advocacy organization, is in oppose, and they don't believe that there's any way to amend this bill to make it work this session. They think there was a lack of stakeholding, a lack of consideration of local concerns, and that this is just an overreach to some degree funded by private enterprise. CCAT, CCI, CML are all in oppose, as are a lot of our other counties that are usually pretty philosophically aligned. So that's kind of where this stands. Now, I sent this off to our CommDev department and haven't heard a full read from them yet. Although I think just based on what we've seen here, I think this is going to be an expense we'll have to bear, and it's not something that we should support. I think it's something that we should absolutely oppose. And so where it is in the process, it's gone through House Committee and it's in House Finance this coming Thursday. And if it passes through all those things, of course, it'll go to Senate. And I think we've got a pretty unique opportunity to advocate there to try to kill it in Senate committee if it should get that far. So I'm sorry to just explode
No,
everything
that's
I knew
okay.
about it. I'm happy to answer any questions if I'm able.
Questions for Levi? Patty?
I think we should oppose for various reasons, some of which you've stated, and other ones we don't know what might happen in the future as far as materials supply and demand kind of stuff. But I just don't know if need be to have somebody testify at a Senate hearing or something who we might want, but I think we should be planning for that. Also, probably a letter of opposition, or Kelly, whatever you feel is appropriate for us to do, if the board wants to go in that direction.
Okay. Jeffrey, thoughts?
I would strongly support the opposed position. That there's no chance that Solar App would meet our criteria from a land use perspective, that looks at building heights, that looks at setbacks, that delineates between ground mount and roof mount. Roof mount is already used by right, so it's a pretty simple approval in our land use process. So I don't see how providing another piece of software on top of our existing customer relationship management software would improve or speed the adoption of solar. And I'd also worry that how does this tie into REMP? So to me, this flies in the face of every program we have from a land use and approval standpoint. And from a state perspective, with regards to preemption, we're already very permissive in terms of land use for roof-mounted solar, period. So that's my strong opposition.
Excellent.
I just want to make sure I really clearly, so it's not just the use of the app for issuing permits, it is the decision-making authority prior to the permit issuance that's wrapped up in all this.
I think there's no human review of that application allowed based under the statute. We're not allowed to review the results of that application. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, we can send a letter, we can follow the cues of our member organizations for when they want or need people to testify.
Awesome.
If that
Go with
works.
that then. Perfect.
And I'd be happy to log a position of opposed just before it goes to Senate or to the House Finance Committee in the event that we can kill it there. It's currently listed as a zero-sum fiscal note.
For the state, maybe.
Right. It's just
Duh.
a question of whose fiscal note it is. So happy to do that. I'll track it through House Finance and then keep you all posted if we have an opportunity to testify or
Do you know what the
advocate.
governor's position is?
I've not heard.
Okay, let's, you have one more? Let's keep going, and then we'll go to our.
Oh. Yeah, I think we're where we need to be. So this I will defer to Liz Woods.
Hi.
I am Liz Woods. I'm the finance director for Picken County. So one of the big topics at the federal level right now is tax exempt bond. We've talked about it a little bit before when I came and presented the debt policy, that it was a concern of mine. And so I've been on several calls and other things that are kind of wrapped around other federal things that are going on, but this has come up in several of those. One of the things that they suggested was if we can do anything that we can do on a local level to appeal to our congressional representatives about how important tax exempt bonds are for local governments. So I was thinking that it might be nice, and I want direction from you guys, as obviously, but it would be, I think, beneficial to maybe come up with a letter that we could maybe get signed off on by several different jurisdictions, not just our own, and try and kind of create a united front and send it to all of our Congress people and senators so that they realize how important tax exempt bonds are for not just counties, but municipal government, all local governments. I believe it's something like 90% of capital projects are funded through tax exempt bonds. We have some information that we can share with you as well, but wanted to kind of get your direction there on what you would like to do next steps, or if you want me to just back off and do nothing, that's totally fine too.
Are you guys having this conversation with the state finance directors?
We have not. I have not gone that far yet. This is something that kind of just came to the forefront last week, and so I wanted to get a little direction from you all before I kind of did anything more.
I mean, I definitely think you should draft it, and we can circulate it to our state groups and CML and all that. I'm happy to do that. That works. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I would add in the language so that it's consistent with the asks we've just made of the representatives and senators, and put the letter under the guise of economic development, not literally just the loss in the toolbox, if you will, or the 200 basis points it's going to cost us, but really here are the projects that we've laid out that we're looking to fund going forward. So we put it under an economic development lens, I guess would be my ask.
Yeah, that's something that Levi and I did discuss as well. Like I said that, just for our community, we have the landfill and the airport are known, debt issuances that are, coming up. If we, got, other regional partners, the city of Aspen is going to need it for the lumberyard, the town of Snowmass, if they start with their transit center, they're going to need tax exempt. So we could kind of like list specific projects, and this would be, I think that list would end up being fairly long if we, get more communities to partner with us.
Yeah.
Looking at the Northwest COG agenda for Thursday, we have a list of letters to support or letters of opposition regarding various things. There's things that are both federal and state. If you can give me that slide right there, if you can print that out, I can put that up at the COG meeting to see if we can get COG to either do a letter as the COG as an entity and have individual jurisdictions also do a letter listing their own projects.
Okay.
That would be huge support. So if you can get me something maybe this afternoon,
Yeah, I think
that would
we
be
could do
great. I'll hang around.
Yeah.
Because of the COG meeting, I'm leaving tomorrow and I'll be going to the COG meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, because we can provide you, as you said, with the slide, and then
I love this slide.
I have a letter from the Government Finance Officers Association of what they've submitted as
Perfect.
well. That has
As a
kind of more
draft.
like details of like this is what communities are using it for and that stuff, and all of the organizations that are in support of tax exempt bonds as well.
And I will also try and go through, I have a bunch of stuff from the NACO meeting, because this was a hot topic, to see if there's anything like you guys can pull up online to look what that discussion was. I don't know if there was a formal discussion, it was just buzz during the whole conference, so, and it was buzz, not just at the conference, but on the Hill with the representatives from around the country.
Yes.
So that was big, so we can, camp on that. The sooner the better.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Sorry to ambush you.
Oh, all good.
Good ambush.
All right. Let's go to P&Z interviews. Jasmine, hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and thank you for your flexibility in our scheduling and Zoom links and all that stuff. So nice to hear you.
Sure.
I'm really sorry about the my inability to find my Zoom link.
No,
I apologize.
Oh, all good. And Charlotte is here. She's just going to give us an overview quickly of where we're at with planning and zoning, and then we'll have our interview. Jasmine, thanks.
Thank you.
hi. Thank you, Jasmine, for tuning in. So Jasmine is currently on the P&Z board, and she is interested in serving another term. So she has completed the application, and this would be another 3-year term. And Zach is our other renewal, as well as Suzanne Caskey, and Suzanne will be interviewed next week. So then we have the regular vacancy that we're still working through.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Jasmine, well, welcome and thank you for your service. So, over the many years you've been part of our Planning and Zoning Commission, and we will invite you to tell us why you'd like to continue on that commission, and then we'll see if any board members have questions for you.
Okay, my sort of informal avocation of being a professional P&Z person after all those years on city, I don't know, there's something about the whole process and the idea of the way land use affects our lives that I find very interesting and always do. My desire to stay on here on the county is because of the community plan that they've been working on. Excuse me, I've been really sick. Anyway, and while I've been sick for the last 2 weeks, I've been sort of muttering and mulling over these things, because one of the things that we as commissioners want, and as you as commissioners want, is to be able to evaluate a particular project in terms of how it fulfills community goals. And very often we've found situations in which the tools that we have don't really address the issues that we need to address. And over the course of various cases that we've heard, we've identified certain areas. But this new plan, the one that has been worked on, has depended a lot on community input, and with a very logical connection between issues that have been identified by the community and areas that our land use code might address these particular issues. So I'm really in favor of this entire approach, except that I think there's this major gap in terms of the quote built environment and its contribution to a lot of the other problems that we've had, like lack of housing. And I would really like to keep nagging through this process of the community plan revision.
Wonderful, thank you. Questions for Jasmine?
Jasmine, I want to thank you for your forever involvement with P&Zs. It's a lot of work, and I know you are diligent about doing the work. Have you had any issues with zooming in or attending in person or anything that might make either one of those better or easier or more functioning?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand.
I know that you zoom in mostly to meetings. Do you have any suggestions that might make zooming in easier, more functioning, as far as people attending the meeting both in person and on Zoom? You know, sometimes there's glitches. I don't know if you've experienced any.
We've had a few, but not really that many. And for somebody like me, on various situations, even though I'm probably the closest one to the county building, rather, I really love being able to do Zoom like I am today, because it would be really not practical for me to be there in person.
Great. Okay, just want to make sure we make it so people can attend however they can attend, so we have quorums and good discussions.
And staff have always been really helpful when I start fumbling around with this stuff.
As we all do, Jasmine, so you know.
Better at.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Patty. Jeffrey.
So Jasmine, I think tonight you're discussing the 2050 plan?
Yeah, well, it's a continuing update. I'm not sure. I don't think there's any action required of us. I think it's more of an informative.
So is there any particular part of the plan that is resonating the most, given the two sort of points you made in your application around housing and the disconnect between building and community values?
Yeah, because I'm of an age where, having worked here for many, many, many years, a lot of the people that I know have either already been forced out or are in the process of being forced out or are really insecure, including myself. And every time we approve a project for the quote built environment, we just created more competition for my housing, which is a very selfish way to look at it, except I'm just an example of a segment of this community that I think does have a certain value in being here, rather than saying, well, you may have worked here for 50 years, but now you're not working full time for an hourly salary, so let's ship you down to Grand Junction. And there's a certain element of this population that seems to think that that's okay. I don't.
Thank you. I heard your point, and it's something we've heard as a board from a number of different avenues over the past couple months. So thank you for that.
All right. Well, Jasmine, thanks. It's been a while since you and I were on P&Z together at the city, and you've hung in it here at the county. And so, so I'm just really grateful for your service, and I'm glad that you've taken interest to it, because I know when we first talked, you were very honest about your sort of lack of, involvement and engagement with county planning. And now, I can tell you've developed some real expertise. And I guess, in addition to the housing, affordable housing is near and dear to my heart, of course, but are there other aspects that you think we're doing well, or we should be doing better, or upcoming policy conversations that you would prioritize?
I really like the structure of the way the planning has been going thus far, and the sort of logical development of the ideas in terms of how it possibly leads to certain action items that could address these better. And I think that this is a really good approach. I just think that not enough attention is being paid to the things that I want to have attention paid to.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I know we all have our sort of things that are near and dear that we want to move faster. I think for our board, TDRs is one of those that we're interested in hearing more about. So, okay, great. Well, thanks, Jasmine. Thank you for jumping on with us and your flexibility again. And as you know, we have some more interviews. And and I guess another thing, what do you think of the 7-person board? I think you've been on the board when it's been 9 people and 7 people, and so how do you think it's functioning?
We've actually been able to get quorums recently.
Yeah, great.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good for everybody. Okay, well, thanks for your input. Nice to see you.
Thanks. Nice to see you all. Nice to have a little chance to vent.
Take care, Deb.
Bye.
All right, cheers. Take care. Feel better.
So did we hear from Zach?
No, I haven't had a response from him, so I'll follow up with him and
If he wanders in, well, I think we
reschedule.
have more open discussion, so
Okay.
we'll just continue to be flexible today. Thanks,
Thank
Charlotte.
you.
And it's May 1st,
It's May 1st.
so I need a hotel for, well, I'll talk to you.
All right.
I think we already talked about that. We'll figure it out. I'll do it.
John, I know you have more open discussion for us.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I want to come back to kind of a pretty quick turnaround request, but the senator's office opened up their earmark request for congressionally directed spending. Those are due next Monday, so it's a pretty quick turnaround. The county had previously submitted a request, a CDS request for the airport terminal for amount just over $3 million at the time. We ended up pulling that request as we were going through the planning and ballot issues and such this last year. With the reopening, staff would like to resubmit the CDS request. This time, what we're looking at after discussions with our lobbyist, Jessica Moynihan, is upping that request to $5 million. There's a broad range that these requests generally come in. The average is generally around 3.6 to 4 million. We felt like the 5 million is a fairly minimal request given the size of our project, but also wouldn't be an outlier within this process. We would be submitting, what she has proposed is submitting against our total estimated design and construction costs at this point. And that's just to give us the most latitude depending on when funds are finally awarded. We can't do a reimbursement, but we can fund any new expenses that are in front of us. We've seen some uncertainty around earmark requests. For example, with the reauthorization bill, all the congressionally directed spending that is authorized for fiscal year 2025 was withdrawn, and we think will be resubmitted for a future year. So we're trying to provide as much flexibility. Right now, we'd be working just off of initial cost estimates. We do have RFQs out, both for terminal and runway design and engineering. Typically, those are running, and Jeffrey's going to have to check me on this, but they typically run around 3.5% to 5% of total project costs on the architectural side. We're probably talking between a 7 and 10 million on what's currently out for RFQ, and then of course we're north of 250 million in terms of construction costs that we would be incorporating into that request. At any rate, we have a quick turnaround. We're looking for 5 million, which is an initial start for the congressionally directed spending. As we get through the design and engineering process, we'd be looking then to tap into the terminals grant program, assume we get everything lined out in a timely manner, and the amount closer to 50 million. So we're looking for authorization from the board to submit that earmark request and also request some letters of support.
Yes, go ahead.
When I was just in DC meeting with the senators and congressmen, we talked about earmark opportunities and the questionability of those opportunities. I think we should put one in and see where it goes. I would rather be in the door than locked outside the door. I think it's perfect for us to turn it around. I think we have enough information. We've been thinking about this funding opportunities. The other one with the 50 million, we did specifically talk with Congressman Hurd, who was really interested in our airport funding about the 50 million. We did bring up the number. out of the special pot of money for terminals. So that's a next step that he's aware of. He does sit on the Transportation Committee in the House, which is a great opportunity for us to work with him. So, yeah, and I think if we need letters of support, and I think staff is already looking into that, it's my understanding. So I think we move forward and see where it goes.
Sounds good. Yep. Questions?
No, oh, sorry, one question. So yes, support budget appropriation and support the letter. Are there any other entities we need to reach out on your behalf? Anything we can do in terms of lifting?
Yeah, so I've got requests ready to go to the chamber and Aspen One and some other individuals for letters of support. If there is any opportunity to get one from our municipal partners, that would maybe be an ask that's best elected to elected. If y'all, it's a very quick turnaround though, and they would not likely have time to bring that back in front of their bodies.
Can they not submit a letter of support at a future date?
They can. The ask was to have it in with the application on the 24th, and I guess I don't know enough about the internal process, Kelly, to know if it comes in later, if that affects it or not.
So the mayor of Snowmass is out of town. She had a death in the family, and she's out of town. So I don't know who you'd recommend with Snowmass. And the mayor-elect is not taken office yet. And I don't know where the current mayor would stand. I know his position on the airport, but maybe Kelly, you can reach out to Tori, or John, what would you recommend? It's a quick turnaround, but if we do a draft letter of support and get it to him?
I mean, the city's not gonna meet till Monday. I think we should ask them. I don't think we should be deterred if they can't get it in by Monday, you know?
I agree.
I mean, that's a
I
letter
agree.
of support to our delegation, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
they're gonna be compiling all of their requests for a period of
For
time
some time.
after the 24th.
And we do have those great contacts, and awareness of our airport issues with all three of our federal delegates, so, yeah. So I think we should do what we can do between now and then and beyond.
All right, we will take that direction.
If there's a draft letter that I can just email to my colleagues, I'm happy to do that.
I'll send some to you before the end of the meeting.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah, no problem. What else?
I got more.
Okay.
Along the same lines of congressionally directed spending, and this would be coming out, CORE is requesting a letter of support. They are putting in a CDS request for the coal bed methane project. It is, they've submitted some very simple language, and I'm going to pass that down.
So they want letters of support for us?
Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
It
Get
looks
my
like
steps
they are
in.
requesting,
You have to go a couple more laps. I'll keep track.
we are requesting from a grant and aid for airports. And
This is
I am
very
must-
generic.
It's very, yes.
I think that's how people are responding to a lot of things coming out of Washington these days.
I think part of it is also just the quick turnaround. that-
It just doesn't say what their request is. We're
Yeah,
just
actually, I'm
supporting.
trying to, I'm seeing a note on mine, on a sticky note, that's 2.7 million asked, but it says to HUD, which does not sound correct to me.
I don't have a problem supporting it with that clarification in today's date rather than the 11th, but they are not copying it or sending it to Congressman Hurd too? Does he have nothing to do with this, or
So I
should we not
think,
keep him in the loop?
yeah, so the House has not opened.
That's right, they are more
their-
hesitant, that's right.
Right, the Senate has, and so most folks are focusing on the senators. I would suggest that when we send letters that they go to Representative Hurd.
I think we should keep him in the loop,
Yeah,
but I think yeah,
Yeah.
we want to add a little,
so we can add in the clarification, and if the board is supportive, we can prepare a letter of support.
and if CORE is comfortable with us putting that additional language in, yeah. I'm good with it.
I mean, the HUD thing is weird. Like HUD needs to keep their money where they're cutting their money.
Yeah.
We need
yeah.
housing, but we're cutting funding for everything.
And I want to double check that because it doesn't totally make sense to me that that's where it'd be coming from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I have the final letter sent to me before I sign it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Greg had, I believe, the board
Very
had
lengthy.
a letter of support for RAFTA that was emailed out last week. And it is support for clarification on RAFTA's tax exempt status. This particularly had to do with the project that they did down in Glenwood Springs to provide housing for RAFTA drivers. I always want to call it the Red Rock Inn, but it's something different than that. But it was deemed that providing housing was outside of the governmental function of the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority, and therefore their tax exemption did not extend to the materials and such bought to redo that housing. They're seeking clarification that no, providing affordable housing for our workers is actually within our purview, and that tax exempt status should attach. So I'll let you all take a look at that, but they're asking for a letter of support to that end.
Why are we contacting CML?
The sentence actually is pretty horrific.
Should we add something in there for our letter that we are part of the RAFTA funding
Oh,
or anything? I mean, just to show that nexus between our role with RAFTA and our support.
So there's probably a couple of issues here, Kelly, and I haven't had time to really research this particular issue, but
Yeah,
I would
no, I think it makes
imagine because municipalities are so reliant on sales tax that they have a vested interest in how far these exemptions would extend, and so having CMLs support, I'd be happy to give.
No, it makes sense because
Yeah.
there's municipalities on the board of directors
Yeah.
for RAFTA. We wouldn't contact CML, but they would. Okay, let's see.
Do we want to add anything about our involvement with RAFTA?
Who is the letter to is what I'm a little confused about.
It's Dear
Dear who?
blank. Should it go to, who's the senator? Senator Faith Winter? Do you know her?
I would
Karen?
imagine it would, need to certainly go to our,
So like Velasco, Catlin,
mhm,
Roberts.
and it would probably make sense to also take that position with CCI.
And CCI. And CCAP,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
same, same.
obviously.
Yeah, I'm good with it. If you want to just tweak it a bit and clarify those.
Yeah, that's fine.
You're saying when they need it, because we're getting, when's the session wrap?
May
May, not till
7th?
May?
May 7th.
Yeah, I think you said May 7th.
It's a Wednesday. Yeah, that's fine. This is fine if we can just get this drafted to the right people and put on letterhead and just sign that. That's crazy. I mean, I wonder how CDOT has dealt with their,
Housing of their,
yeah, you know,
Well, and the
purchase of
state
materials
patrol.
and
It's a good
supplies,
question,
you know.
And look at the state patrol. They've got them living in those campers in behind Willets. I mean,
All
There's-
right.
there's
That's
such
all
a,
I had for
there's
open
such,
discussion.
such
Okay.
a push for
Okay.
housing and such obstacles to throw at us. You know, you need to provide housing for your essential workers. You need to, and then, oh, but you can't do X, Y, and Z to fund it, or we're gonna make you fund it this way, which is more expensive. And it's like working for something and it against it at the same time.
No, it's true. I mean, I've had conversations with Department of Revenue about like tax, you know, like a similar tax exempt program for donations of land for affordable housing that we do for open space or conservation. And there's just such pushback.
It's like
Yeah.
build it, but figure it out how you can do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, we're gonna blame you for not doing it.
Okay, Zach Matthews. Hi.
Hi, oh, I didn't even see
Hi.
you sneak in the back door.
Welcome. Oh, well, we're glad you could join us. We've,
Hi,
we've
Zach.
been flexible today.
Thank you.
So.
So I don't want to disrupt the agenda or
No,
anything.
no, this is good.
Yeah.
We also, we had to push Jasmine's interview around a little
We're in
and get her
flex
on when we
mode.
could get her on, so, we're just rolling with it and glad you could be here.
Thank
'Cause
you.
it's harder to
Hi.
reschedule than anything.
Yeah, to be frank, I tried to sneak in one run and
Did you get it?
The gondola was like blowing 60 miles per hour up top. And I rolled the dice and it didn't work out for me. You know, can't win them all.
Well,
I got stuck
don't
a
know.
couple
Did you-
times. and
Did you
stopped.
get your run down?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So here
Well,
I am.
it works for us
He was
just
stuck,
fine. This
stuck in
is
traffic on
Yeah,
the gondola.
Yeah, I like that.
Aspen traffic.
The best kind.
Yeah.
The best kind of traffic. The only good kind of traffic.
Yeah.
really. Well, thanks. Well, you know, we how we conduct these interviews, we invite you to tell us why you wish to stay on the board and you know, why we should consider your candidacy again, your reappointment, and then we'll ask questions. We do have a number of renewal interviews and then I guess new slot interviews
Okay.
that we're doing right now. And so we will make our decision in April and then Charlotte will communicate. And then we pass a resolution naming all of our citizen board appointees.
Yep.
That
Awesome.
works. All right, so tell us about what you love about P&Z and also what you don't love about P&Z.
Well, I've been on the board for a bit now, and I really enjoy. You know, I feel like as the process has gone on, when I first started, I think I'm 7 years into it now, and I'm just starting to figure out all the details and all the zoning, all the minutia, right? And I feel like I'm starting to get a really good grasp of, and you guys will understand this, of what the board does and what the responsibility of the P&Z board in and of itself, and not going outside of that envelope. And sort of, I always have I always try to, you know, look at things from 30,000 feet, but sometimes on that board, that's not your job. And to sort of stick within the managerial auspices of, you know, what you're trying to do on that board. So that's something I feel like I'm getting a little better at. And I've been running the meetings. I've took over from Jeffrey, who I learned a lot from, and I've been trying to keep everything on time and manage a meeting efficiently, which is a lot harder than Jeffrey made it look easy. So I'm sort of learning how to do that, which is interesting as well. Yeah. But I really enjoy doing it, and I feel like it is, you know, a good community service, and to try to, you know, give back. And yeah, every time it's new, and it's just starting to get real interesting right now with different GMQS issues and TDR and building envelope, and there's a lot of things I think that are gonna be coming across our plate that are really complex and technical issues. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Questions?
Well, thank you. I remember talking to you when you first were thinking about applying. I'm like, go for it. He's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, but don't blame it on me if you get appointed. So thank you.
Yeah.
And so I know Jeffrey, he likes to bring up the 2050 plan, so I'm going to beat him to it. Do you have any thoughts, any particular issues, or positive or negative or in between, about how that's evolving and where it might take us?
Yeah, I mean, staff has put in so much work to that, and every time we do a work session with that plan, you can tell the amount of time and energy that they spend crafting the language for that plan, and the feedback, and how that's sort of shaping the language in the plan. And so I really appreciate that, and because a lot of it is not easy work,
They've done a great job.
And it's also, some of the things, I guess exciting for P&Z is a different scale than your guys' version of exciting, which I like. It, not exciting, but that is a very, the amount of work that they've put in, I really appreciate, and showing the amount of time that they're investing in that, and the long-term consequences of that, and if it gets done right, what that looks like 25 years down the road, as opposed to if we, it's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks. Jeffrey? Now I stole your question.
No, I'll piggyback on Patty's question. Do you think at this stage of the planning process for the 2050 plan, we're properly unpacking the tensions that you and I and everyone else in this room feel every day?
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. I won't answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, definitely like the issues that we have in the community with employee housing and with traffic and with real estate prices and with the average home size, and how, like we talked about when we were going through the curved scale, based on how much energy a home uses, and that arc that it goes up when you hit a certain amount of square footage, and that it just exponentially grows, right? And then the amount of employee generation, that we talked about, like that a home that size creates, that doesn't get mitigated for. All those issues, obviously extremely complex, and unpacking that specifically and getting it into the 2050 plan is, I don't know how that's done. I mean, to be frank, like there's you can have climate goals, you can have traffic goals, you can have development goals, but there are some of those issues that are much harder to put onto paper and have them be consequential. That's what I'll, yeah.
That's it.
You good?
Good.
Okay. What do you think of the culture of the board now? How do you think it's functioning in its current composition?
I think it's great. I mean, I think we have a really nice mix. Like, it's great having Suzanne Caskey be on there, and Jasmine, and we have a good mix of between construction, locals that have been here for a really long time and seen everything change, over 40, 50 years. So I think we have a really good grasp, and we have multiple members of our board who have been on city P&Z and been on P&Z in the 90s, and that have come back. And so we really have a good long-term view of how planning and zoning really shapes our community. Yep.
Yes, Jeffrey.
No, I would just add to Zach's point. I think one of the attributes that he brings to the table in every meeting is that he comes in from a recreational standpoint. Not that today is any indication.
Yeah.
He comes in late from a recreational
Right.
standpoint.
But I appreciate, when we're talking about a fishing easement, you're sitting there saying, what's the value to the community? So I think it's not just, the demographics of the board are diverse through a variety of different lenses from where you live to
Yeah.
how you recreate and how you use the land around us. So I think that's a unique perspective that you bring now, adding on top of that sort of this land use guidance and lens, I think is a nice combination.
Awesome.
All right, are there other questions?
Oh, it's good to see you.
Nice
Good to see you guys.
Glad you
Thanks
got a
for
ride
fitting me
glad you
in
mentioned-
late.
Yeah,
I
no,
really
all good.
appreciate your time.
Yes.
Good to see
Very
everyone.
flexible
for all
today.
your
It's just the
service.
three of us, and it's going great.
Moving right along. All right, great. You guys have a good
Thanks, Zach.
day.
All right, cheers,
See
you
ya.
too. Okay, let's go back to
you,
open
Charlotte.
discussion. Thank you,
Charlotte, thank you.
We got it all done today, Charlotte. Yay. And see if there's other open discussion from board members. John, I think, said he's done.
Oh, no, John has one more.
He does?
Oh, I was giving a thumbs up.
Oh.
Yeah.
What
It
is
was
that?
not an eye test, sorry.
Sorry,
What is
well, I
it?
don't have my glasses on. So.
We're all at the edge of our
Oh,
seat.
did we want to talk about this today, or
I think we're good.
What?
the Transportation Coalition?
I would like to open the
request.
discussion, if that's okay. We have been approached with the Transportation Coalition for the 21st Century, which is a newly forming group to, working to improve transportation mobility for residents and visitors in the Roaring Fork Valley. I take that right off their charter. I think it's something we need to have a full board discussion about, as far as the county's involvement and the other ongoing efforts to look at this problem, by different jurisdictions and other entities. And I would ask that, George Newman did call me. I said I needed more information, but Thursdays are not a really good workable day, and one of their requests is that participants be able to attend all or most of all of the meetings, and I couldn't commit to that. But I think we should wait to commit, each of us as members of this board, till we have a full board discussion. I think Greg may have joined, so if somebody could, John, maybe you could reach out to Greg and say we're gonna have a full board discussion, if Kelly and Jeffrey agree, to decide how we want to approach this.
I would say, echoing Patty's comments, that Thursday is booked in my calendar through 25. Both a commitment at the state level with Wildfire Resiliency Code Board and adoption in the next couple months, plus CCI, CCAT, and NWCCOG.
That's a lot of letters there, sir.
He makes them up sometimes just to keep us on our toes.
Sorry.
And EOTC also meets on Thursday.
Yes. So, I mean, I think we should be responsive. I can't tell if this is an invitation, so I guess.
It's just their charter. George was supposed to send it to me, send it to Jeffrey. Jeffrey copied it to me. I copied it to everybody so we could get more concrete information, but I think it's deserving of a 5-member board discussion to see if we want to participate and how and who.
Yeah. I mean, it says it plans to invite the following to be involved either through direct participation or through the sharing of information and resources.
It lists like 10 entities, to name a few.
You know, I haven't read this thoroughly or given it a ton
So
of
should we-
thought.
we'll bring
I
it back
guess
when we have a
I think
full
we
board?
should talk about it as a board, and we should be responsive to whatever their request.
I will get back
ultimately
to
ends up
George
being.
and let him know that I brought it up with the information that he had provided to Jeffrey, for us to look at, and that when we have a full board, we'll have a discussion, and we will keep him in the loop. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, and I'd also love us to just give direction for Linda to be available to talk with these guys. I don't know how much she has been so far, but, you know, I think some of the question has been relative to the 2017 mobility study, and she could provide some insight about how EOTC has addressed some of those elements if they're not totally aware of
That's a good point, Kelly.
what some of it we have vetted and have considered, and there are reasons we have elected to not pursue some of those strategies, but.
Yeah, and I think we'll have a full board discussion. I'm hoping there's an opportunity to there's so many discussions happening that it would be good to try and bring these together under maybe one or two umbrellas instead of so many. And so we might have some ideas around that, and using our staff as an opportunity to convene some of those discussions, but we can have that when we have full board.
And I'll reach out to Georgia if that's okay, since you called me. The other thing, can I just add really quick to this? I want Linda to know, and the article about the new traffic monitors was really a good article about what kind of data they're collecting. I can't wait to see it come to us. I think that's going to be really critical in finding, you got to know the specifics of the problem to find the specific solutions. And I think that's going to be really good information.
If I could do a quick shout out to our telecom team too, who
Yes,
really
yes,
got that set up.
for getting
Yeah.
that organized and getting those up there. I think it's really key.
Okay. Are there other open discussion items?
I have one other issue, NEPA. To see if we want to submit, I talked with Colorado Wild Public Lands today. They're very concerned about the stripping of NEPA. There was a broad discussion, and I've got to try and find it on the website for NACO. It was a great discussion about NEPA and the other acts surrounding NEPA, to see if we want to submit a letter. John and I talked briefly, and since NEPA hits so many of our departments, it should come from the board, not say from open space or any specific, but we look at NEPA a lot. So I will want to see if you guys want me to further continue the discussion with John and try and pull some of that information out of the NACO meeting. That was a great discussion at NACO. I learned a lot, and they have I didn't get the handout. It was a book thing that they were gone. So I'm going to reach out and see if they have any more they can send us when it was really well done. But they should have the video of the meeting on their website because they knew it would be of interest to so many. And it was a very diverse group in the room that had a lot of the same issues as to the process. So would you like me to look into that and see kind of a letter?
Yeah. And I met with Kevin Warner last week. I think we've all been meeting with him, but I asked him if any of the NEPAs were affecting Pickens County, and he said no. They haven't had any delay in any active processes.
I think it's evolving kind of as we speak.
But that does bring up, John, I would, I really think we need to get a plan together and figure out at a community level what the impacts of the summer recreation season are going to be. I mean, meeting with Kevin, he told me they hire 25 seasonals to manage Maroon Recreation Area alone, that they will not be able to hire. And, nonetheless on the forest. And so we gotta get a strategy together on how we're gonna deal with that, or what components we are gonna deal with, or what messaging we're gonna mitigate.
Yeah, and we did put a meeting together to start getting our heads around this at the staff level. Can't remember exactly when it is right now, but we did talk about the leadership team, and part of it's gonna need to be a policy discussion with this body about how much local resources do you want to put into mitigating these changes? Are we messaging? Are we there's going to be, but we want to be able to bring you all some options and to understand even what our capabilities are in working with the federal lands. And so
in the chamber,
we do right now we're doing it initially just internally to kind of scope out that discussion, and then I think there needs to be a policy discussion with this board about how far out you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's just gonna be more of a stakeholder,
Yeah.
type of conversation.
There's,
ultimately. Yeah.
being up there and watching the Forest Service rangers that are up there mitigating the tourist impacts, there's life safety issues up there that are gonna be like not, with the moose. I mean, for example, we're gonna be seeing a lot of calls with our sheriff's office, so it's gonna really have an impact to hit our community resources from all sides. So I think seeing what we can do, right now we're still working on, I did send off, John, to Jessica Moynihan, our information from how we fund our seasonal workers, Forest Service workers. And she was gonna, have you heard back from her? I sent it to you too, I think, John.
Yes.
We need to see, because Senator Bennett was really interested in seeing that. So if you could touch base, just because, and send it to all three, because Congressman Hurd was like, what do you mean? You guys are funding these positions and the Forest Service won't let you? And we were like, yeah. And he was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. We're like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So if we can, if we need to try and expand that funding, I don't know, that might be something we need to look at too. If we can even
Yeah.
do the one
I
we've
mean, I
already
think
had.
there's concerns about whether they're even keeping the fees that are already coming into the forest, on the forest. There's a lot. There's a lot that I'm really worried about.
Yeah, this is going to be for the most visited national forest in the system in a county that's primarily made up of national forest lands. This is potentially a huge impact. Yeah.
Yep. And we're doing the best we can, but it's starting to, we're going to be running into visitor reservations and all that stuff very quickly.
And we do have limited capabilities for enforcement and such, which is why we have some of the agreements we have to actually pay for Forest Service employees.
I just think we have to, in some ways, I think we need to play like a convener role, even if it's not, we're not going to answer all the questions with a resource dedication, but hotels are making reservations for the summer, and I don't think no one's telling them this is what you should be communicating to your guests who plan to come here, That's one of the roles that I think we are well positioned to do here. So.
And I don't know when RAFTA opens up their bookings for tickets to go up the Bells. It could be coming up.
Yeah, I think it's in April.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already, permit season started February 15th for the forest.
For the forest?
Yeah.
Yeah. But John, when you get ready, though, I think, talking with Debbie Braun at the chamber to see what they're hearing, what they're thinking, once we have our internal discussion.
Yeah, thanks.
Vicky.
We appreciate it.
Okay, anything like on a really high note here?
There could be pie upstairs. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's not much left, I can tell you that.
Anything else? Okay.
I'm good. Thank you, Kelly.
Well,
good job.
Thank you. It's in Jeffrey's hands next week. And yeah, everyone have a great day. Thank you, Grassroots.
Thank you.